Hey folks, Milkman Al here. Thanks for the awesome response to the League Starter build guide that I put up. That's really cool. Feels good. I've gotten lots of inquiries about one of the builds in particular, which is the one that I'm thinking of using to start the league with, and that is the Cold Conversion Blade Vortex Tornado Occultist. Lots of people have asked me to kind of go into a little bit more depth about it, so your wish is my command. Here I am. We're going to do exactly that. So we're going to get into it, but again, if you like this video and you want more content like this, please like and subscribe, and you can come and see me live Wednesdays and Sundays from 8 to 10 p.m. Central Time. We will be nerding out hardcore for the league start, so come join me. So the first thing we have here is just a basic leveling tree. This is probably for about level 40, like you can see up here. It's 50 skill points. Pretty much this is just the nuts and bolts of the build, which is actually one of the things that I like the most about it. This early in the game, you basically have all of the mechanics that you really need going on. So you've got your Mind Over Matter already, you got Wicked Ward, and you have Eldritch Battery. So just between those two things, you should be pretty durable and have a really good supply of mana going on. You also have your Unleash bonus and Intensify bonus. And we picked up a fair amount of life and energy shield here on the tree between Melding Cluster and the Written in Blood Cluster. Not a whole lot of damage just yet outside of the caster masteries, but that's the nice part about the build is once you're done with the fundamentals, basically everything from there is just damage bonuses and some extra, life, energy shield, a little bit of survivability. But as far as, again, the mechanics go, you're done. So I've chosen to get Malediction first, and here's why. So I feel like crit is sort of squandered at this point because you don't have any extra crit nodes to speak of. So all you'd be doing is getting power charges, and you probably won't be spending 200 mana all that often, or that frequently, like not frequently enough to maintain a ton of power charges. Malediction gives you an extra 10% damage done to enemies, and you also take 10% reduced damage. It'll also let you be a little bit more defensive using Temporal Chains, Enfeeble if you like, and you can use a Mark and like Vulnerability or something at this point. I didn't get either Void Beacon or Frigid Wake because there's no cold conversion going on. And to me, that's something that's going to happen in the later stages of these builds. It makes a lot more sense to me to stay a physical build until pretty late in the game, honestly, when you can either acquire Rimburn through your own playing or trade for one, which I know isn't like the most difficult thing to do, but on a league start, it might take you into level 60, level 70 through the story or something like that. So in any event, I think Malediction is probably the strongest way to go. If you don't want to do that, then go for the power charges. Level 60, as you can see, is just building on what you already have. So I've chosen to come around this way, get the extra power charge, get some pretty intense durability here through Infused Flesh and recouping damage taken as life. I think that'll help you out a whole lot, survivability-wise. Extra energy shield, and we've taken these staff nodes, so this obviously necessitates using a staff, which is something that you may want to opt out of, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Because you can get +1 to physical skill gems wands pretty easily, but if for some reason you can't quite come across those, this is a good option. This cluster here is very strong. We've respec'd out of these two nodes because the tree came around this way, so you're just saving yourself 2 points doing that. Otherwise, you're just continuing to build a little bit of durability and starting to sort of get the crit engine going for the build. So this is what I would consider a fairly basic endgame tree for zero budget. Yes, it's a level 94 tree. It's everything that was in the previous tree, extra crit nodes. Come down here and get this other life and energy shield cluster, get your other power charge, and some more life. Sovereignty for mana reservation, so you can start stacking up your auras a fair bit. I didn't mention it explicitly earlier, but I would get Forbidden Power as your second ascendancy, and then come here to Void Beacon and Frigid Wake. In terms of itemization, all I've got going on here is the 2+1 to physical spell gems wands that I mentioned, and Rim Sorrows. So those staff nodes that I showed you aren't even doing anything right now, but despite that, we're doing 616,000 damage, which is not too bad. So for skills, we've got Tornado, Blade Vortex, as you might expect. Tornado just has all of the damage supports that PoB chose for it to maximize damage output. Blade Vortex has Unleash, Intensify, as we discussed. Also Hypothermia, because you want to be freezing stuff as much as you possibly can. For the extra defense layer, we've got Vortex to apply Bone Chill for some extra cold damage. Also, Hatred, Zealotry, Herald of Ice, and Purity Herald of Purity is kind of a nice defensive layer for some meat shields, and Frostbite on a ring. So overall, that's what your basic in-game setup is going to look like. So once you start fleshing out your character, your tree is going to start to look more like this. Now, you'll notice that Wicked Ward and Eldritch Battery are gone, and that's because getting a Devouring Diadem is a really big part of this build. It lets you just basically get rid of this whole part of the tree and save yourself a lot of skill points that you can use over here. So we've transitioned into having a Thread of Hope for Glancing Blows, because it saves you all of these points to travel down here, and also lets you get Whirling Barrier and Counterweight, which are both very strong staff nodes as well. That lets you use blocking as another defensive mechanic, and also a way to regenerate your energy shield and life through this mastery here. That gives you energy shield and life when you block. You'll notice that this is pretty similar to the basic in-game tree that I just showed you, but we have spec'd back into these nodes here to account for the fact that we're no longer looping around here through Eldritch Battery and Wicked Ward. So items-wise, things are still pretty basic here. There's a Disintegrator Staff. That's our probably main weapon. You can do better than that with some plus to skill gems on a staff and, you know, some extra bonuses. But for a long time, the Disintegrator is probably going to be your best option because of all the physical damage that it adds. Got the Devouring Diadem that I mentioned. Rimsorrow Gloves still, and then the rest of this is basically just filled out with basic energy shield and life gear that should be very easily attainable, so your life and energy shield totals and your damage are going to go up quite a bit further from what they are now. And Tornado does just shy of 300,000, but it's actually going to end up being a huge chunk of extra damage because Blade Vortex is rocking about 1.8 million. And if you're hitting your Tornado even 10 times, you can hit it a maximum of 20. If you hit it 10 times, that's an extra 2.4 million damage every quarter second. Tornado is really busted, and it's really good if you abuse it, which is what this build is all about. So I've also thrown in the Watcher's Eye here, but again, this is a pretty cheap Watcher's Eye. The fizz to cold damage conversion, that is not expensive. They were running in the 30 chaos range, so you should be able to pick one of these up as soon as they actually start dropping from people killing the Elder. For skills, we've switched things up a little bit here, just because this build is kind of starved for gem slots. So, you know, these two 6-link skills really sort of eliminate a lot of options for weird gadgetry. And so instead of Vortex on left click, I've chosen to go with Steel Skin for some extra durability. I think that's just the smart play. Since the build doesn't really have any physical mitigation, you're going to need to not get chunked by giant physical hits somehow, and that's the best way that I can think of doing it. Note that in this arrangement here, you do not want Steel Skin linked with cast with damage taken. You want to actually be able to self-cast this, so that it'll be a 3-link and a 1-link. Frost Bomb gives you the extra cold exposure, and Ball Lightning actually you'll use with a life gain on spell hit ring as a nice way to just regenerate a little bit of extra life. You can swap in whatever skill you want there, but I think that's a nifty little trick because you're only taking 528 damage, and a Ball Lightning is going to hit stuff a whole bunch of times. So if you gain 15 life per each of those hits, that's basically making things a wash. The same auras that we had earlier, all in the Devouring Diadem, so they get mana reservation bonuses and also an extra level. And I've switched from Flame Dash to Frost Blink for movement, so I can use Frost Blink to apply Bone Chill, since Vortex isn't around anymore. I'm not a huge Frost Blink fan, I find it kind of cumbersome, but I think this is gonna work out pretty well, because you're generally wanting to be right next to enemies, so you'll trigger the cooldown bonuses to it fairly often. And last but not least, for those of you with a huge budget, I've put in an Energy Shield low life build. The damage potential for this is quite a bit higher, though I think it'll probably be a little squishier than the Mind Over Matter build. And you'll also need a lot more currency to get it off the ground. Just a 6-link Shavs is going to be pretty tough to come by, especially at League start. But if this floats your boat, go for it. Like you can see over here, damage is a little bit higher even with just pretty basic gear, so as you pump that, it's gonna increase exponentially. The nice thing about this build is you have a lot more points to play with, since you don't have to pump both life and energy shield, so you can get your damage going a little bit better. And I've chosen to travel over here to get some more aura nodes, and an extra curse. And I've also chosen to go over here to Ghost Reaver, which allows us to leech about 2,000 energy shield a second, which is pretty damn good recovery if you ask me. But we still have some features of the tree that existed in the other builds, such as Thread of Hope over here giving glancing blows, and these staff nodes down here, just for a little bit of extra protection and damage. Items are mostly the same, but like I said, you have to use a Shav so that you don't instantly die from chaos damage. Skills, also much the same. However, I've thrown in Discipline and also used Arrogance on the Heralds to get yourself to low life status. You may also want to fiddle with cluster jewels in this setup because you don't have to spend as much time pathing to energy shield nodes. I still think that you're going to be missing out on a whole bunch of good stuff on the tree if you do that, but it's worth a shot. It's worth a try if you can get a hold of some good cluster jewels. One that would be really nice is Blast Freeze to basically spread freezes all over the place. It'd be a really strong defensive layer for you to have. But yeah, this one has even more upward mobility for survivability and damage, but again, is going to be very high budget option. So yeah, this is my league starter, the Cold Conversion Blade Vortex Tornado Occultist. Hopefully you guys like the build. Give it a try. Let me know what you think. If you see any improvements that I can make, anything that needs to be changed around, let me know. Drop me a line. I'm all about feedback. So again, if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll be around for a while. I will see you guys at League Start. Hopefully it works out really well for you. Thanks for watching and have a good one.